Silence is one of the most underestimated forces in the world. People often mistake silence for absence, for emptiness, or for weakness. But true silence, the kind that is chosen, not forced, is one of the most powerful statements a person can make. It's not the absence of thought or strength. In fact, it is the highest form of presence. When someone chooses silence, they are not retreating. They are positioning themselves to respond, not react. That choice, that deliberate restraint, speaks volumes. It shows discipline, patience, and awareness that many loud voices in the room can't begin to understand. The silent ones are not mute by circumstance. They are quiet by design. They understand something most people overlook, that words can be weapons and silence can be armor. In a world that constantly demands a response, remaining silent is an act of rebellion. It's a refusal to be pulled into noise, and that refusal gives them power. Power over their emotions, power over their reactions, power over people who seek to provoke, distract, or manipulate. While others rush to speak their minds, the silent ones observe. They gather data, they study energy, they watch how people reveal themselves through their own noise. In their silence, they're learning. In their stillness, they're building. There is a calm confidence that radiates from someone who doesn't feel the need to speak just to be seen. They don't compete for attention. They don't fill the air with empty words just to feel important. Instead, they embody importance. They know that not every moment deserves a reaction. Not every insult deserves a response, and not every conversation is worth joining. Their strength lies in knowing when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. People often fear what they can't read. And that's exactly why silence is so powerful. It leaves people guessing, it keeps them uncomfortable, it creates space for others to reveal themselves, while the silent one remains unreadable, unshaken. This mystery becomes magnetic. People are drawn to those they can't easily figure out, and in that mystery lies influence. People pay attention to those who are difficult to predict. They want to know what the silent one is thinking, how they feel, what they'll do next. That uncertainty creates control. The most powerful people in the room are rarely the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who sit back, eyes sharp, energy still. They're not detached, they're deeply engaged, just not with their mouths. Their power is internal. It's measured not by how loud they are, but by how steady they remain. While chaos swirls around them, they stay grounded. That stillness becomes their fortress. Silence is not a weakness. It's a weapon sharpened by experience, polished by self-restraint, and wielded only by those who have nothing to prove. The silent ones don't need to raise their voices. They've already raised their standards. And in that quiet, deliberate control lies unmatched power. In a world where everyone is in a rush to be seen, heard, and validated, there is a quiet group of individuals who move differently. They don't chase noise or attention. They don't engage in every argument or try to prove their worth with words. While others scatter their energy trying to be right, liked, or admired, the silent ones conserve it. They understand a truth that most overlook. Energy is a resource, and like any valuable resource, it must be protected, refined, and directed with purpose. Every time someone gets caught up in explaining themselves to people who have already decided not to understand them, they lose a little more energy. Every argument entered out of pride, every emotional reaction triggered by ego, every attempt to win over the crowd, they've felt the exhaustion of giving too much to people and situations that didn't deserve it. Now they choose to channel that energy inward. Instead of reacting to everything around them, they redirect that power. They use it to develop discipline, to strengthen their thoughts, to sharpen their awareness. While others are spreading themselves thin, trying to juggle opinions, the silent ones are building something unshakable within. Their quiet exterior is not a sign of detachment, it's a signal of focused intent. Every moment they choose not to speak is a moment they are studying, analyzing, preparing. Their silence is never empty, it's full of thought, full of strategy. There's a certain kind of power that only comes when you're no longer impulsive, That kind of power comes when you stop giving emotional access to anyone who provokes you, when you stop being so available for every battle that doesn't matter in the long run. The silent ones have mastered this. They understand that not every battle needs to be fought, not every insult needs to be answered, and not every question deserves a response. By conserving their energy, they maintain a level of control that others only dream of. This control doesn't just apply to interactions with others, it applies to their relationship with themselves. They apply that same restraint in their habits, in their routines, in the way they pursue their goals. Because when your energy is no longer being drained by chaos, it can be invested into creation. They build skills, focus on growth, and strengthen their minds. They become razor sharp, not by accident but by intention. Their silence becomes a furnace where they forge themselves. Others might see their lack of response as weakness or disinterest, but those who know. They recognize that silence is not the absence of strength, it's the focusing of it. The silent ones aren't passive, they're powerful, not because they shout the loudest, but because they've learned to protect their energy, master their impulses, and direct every ounce of effort toward becoming something greater. In a world of noise, their calm is their edge, their stillness is their weapon, and their conserved energy, that's where their true power lives. Mystery has a power that noise can never match. When someone is quiet, composed, and unreadable, they create an invisible force around them, something that draws people in while keeping them at a distance. It's human nature to fear the unknown, to feel uneasy in the presence of what we can't understand or predict. That's why the quiet soul stands out. Without trying, without speaking, without demanding anything, they pull attention. Their silence becomes a gravitational force and others can't help but be affected by it. When someone talks too much, their story is laid bare. Their thoughts, intentions, and insecurities are all exposed. There's no mystery left. But the quiet person, they become a question that others want to answer. They become an open book with the pages glued shut. And it's this element of mystery that makes them magnetic. People want to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what drives them. But no matter how hard they look, they can't quite figure it out, and that makes the silent one unforgettable. More than that, the quiet soul becomes a mirror. In their stillness, they reflect everything around them. People begin to project their own fears, desires, and insecurities onto them. Someone insecure might think the quiet one is judging them. Someone arrogant might think they're being silently challenged. Someone curious might feel intrigued, wanting to break through that calm exterior. But the silent one remains unmoved. They do not explain, they do not adjust. They let others reveal themselves, all while revealing nothing in return. This is how attention is commanded without force. The loudest people in the room often demand attention, but the silent ones attract it. And there's a huge difference. Attraction is rooted in curiosity, in interest, in presence. The quiet person doesn't need to put on a show. Their lack of exposure is the show. In a world where people constantly overshare and overexpose, someone who remains private and composed becomes almost mythical. They trigger questions, stir emotions, and shift the energy in a room just by being there. There's also a subtle intimidation that comes with mystery. People don't like being unable to categorize others. It unsettles them when they can't predict a person's next move. The quiet person walks with a calm confidence that says, "I don't need you to understand me," and that unsettles those who rely on predictability to feel in control. That kind of energy can't be faked. It comes from within, from a place of deep self-assurance and emotional detachment from validation. The magnetic mystery of the silent soul is not an act, it's a lifestyle. It's cultivated through restraint, through observation, and through the strength of not giving everything away. They know their value, and they don't bargain it with noise. They hold their presence like a blade behind their back, never shown, but always there. And in doing so, they dominate the room without ever raising their voice. Mystery doesn't need to be explained, it only needs to be felt, and the silent ones make sure you feel it even if you never fully understand why. There is a sharp distinction between watching the game and being consumed by it. While most people rush to participate in every conversation, debate, or situation, the silent ones step back. They do not speak just to fill the air. They don't join the noise just to feel relevant. They observe, they study, they let others reveal themselves through their words, their habits, their reactions. And in that stillness, they gather knowledge that most overlook. Observation becomes their weapon. While others are too busy talking, the silent ones are decoding behavior, understanding motives and preparing responses that aren't impulsive, they're strategic. Every time a person speaks without thinking, they expose a piece of themselves. Their fears, their pride, their desperation to be seen. It's all there in their tone, their posture, their timing. The silent observer doesn't need to ask for these details. They watch them unfold in real time. People underestimate this kind of power. They assume silence means ignorance, but in truth, it often signals intelligence. The person who chooses to listen gains a broader picture than the one who always needs to be heard. Observation is a form of participation, but it's higher, cleaner, more refined. It requires patience and self-control, both of which are rare. Because they aren't busy defending their egos, the silent ones can process everything. The facts, the lies, the emotion behind the words. They don't interrupt, they don't argue, they absorb. And through that absorption they gain an edge. They become masters of timing. They know when to act, when to speak, and when to walk away. This kind of precision is impossible for those who are always in reaction mode. The silent ones are never rushed. They move with intention, guided not by emotion but by calculation. It's not that they are passive, quite the opposite. They are intensely active within. Their minds are constantly working, filtering information, storing data, assessing every situation. But they don't waste energy on random displays of opinion or power. They wait. And when they do strike, it is with such clarity and impact that everyone notices. That is the result of patience, fueled by observation. Every move they make is efficient because it's been planned. They don't move for show, they move for results. There is a certain kind of wisdom that can only be earned in silence. By not constantly inserting themselves, the silent ones avoid unnecessary conflict and gain critical insight. They begin to see patterns in people, patterns that repeat, habits that betray intention, weaknesses that hide behind words. They don't need to test someone to understand them. They let others show who they are, and that insight becomes a source of immense power. While the world is busy rushing toward the spotlight, the silent observer positions themselves in the shadows, where every detail is clearer. They know that true control doesn't come from being seen, but from knowing exactly when and how to be seen. Observation beats participation not because it is easier, but because it is smarter. It is the choice to trade noise for knowledge, reaction for readiness, and randomness for precision. In that choice, the silent ones rise above the crowd, not with volume, but with vision. Emotional control is the true measure of inner strength. In a world that rewards instant reactions and celebrates vulnerability without boundaries, the silent ones take a different path. They feel deeply, often more than anyone around them, but they've mastered the art of not letting those feelings control their actions. They don't wear their hearts on their sleeves. They don't give people easy access to their triggers. Instead, they protect their emotions like a fortress, understanding that not everyone deserves to witness what lies beneath the surface. This isn't about coldness or detachment. The silent ones aren't numb, they're selective. They know the world is filled with people who feed on weakness, who manipulate vulnerability, who use emotional outbursts as opportunities to gain power, and so they learn. They train themselves not to bleed in front of predators. They build a quiet discipline that allows them to feel pain without reacting, to feel anger without exploding, to feel joy without losing balance. That kind of control doesn't come easy. It's forged through experience, through heartbreak, through moments when they realize that being raw in front of the wrong person cost them something they couldn't get back. While others react to every provocation, the silent ones pause. They let the emotion move through them, but they don't let it decide for them. They know that one impulsive moment can undo years of progress. They've seen how easy it is to be manipulated when emotions run unchecked, so they guard their energy. They think before they speak. They breathe before they move. They understand that true power lies in response, not reaction. This level of emotional mastery requires a high degree of self-awareness. The silent ones spend time alone, facing their own shadows, understanding the root of their triggers. They don't run from their emotions, they confront them in private, so they don't explode in public. They've learned that controlling your emotions doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you've decided your emotions will no longer control you. There's a certain grace in this kind of restraint. It's not about suppressing emotions, it's about owning them. knowing exactly what you feel, why you feel it, and choosing when and where it's appropriate to express it. The silent ones don't deny their humanity, they simply refuse to hand it over to people who wouldn't handle it with care. And because of that, they move through life with a quiet dignity. They don't need to shout to prove they're strong. Their strength is evident in the way they remain calm under pressure, the way they handle conflict without chaos, the way they walk away from disrespect without creating a scene. They aren't emotionless, they're emotionally sovereign. In a world where everyone is taught to scream their feelings to be heard, the silent ones whisper to themselves and listen. They've realized that controlling your emotion is not about bottling it up, but about transforming it into wisdom, patience, and precision. And in doing so, they gain the one thing most people never achieve: mastery of self. Still waters run deep, a phrase so often repeated, yet so rarely understood. In a society obsessed with noise, spectacle, and constant expression, it's easy to overlook the quiet ones. They don't command the room with volume. They don't demand to be heard. They don't announce their moves or broadcast their worth. But if you pay close attention, you'll feel something unmistakable in their presence. Power, not the kind that needs to be flaunted or validated, the kind that just is. True power doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't need to be loud to be real. It exists in silence, in calm, in the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to explain themselves. The silent ones don't flex their strength with words. They let their energy speak. You can feel it when they walk into a room. You can sense it in the way they carry themselves. Grounded, self-contained, untouchable. They don't seek to control others. They've already mastered control over themselves. There's a reason the loudest person in the room is often the weakest. Loudness, more often than not, is overcompensation, a mask worn to distract from insecurity, fear, or the desperate need to be seen. But the silent ones? They've got nothing to prove. They aren't moved by the need for approval. They aren't rattled by attention. Their value isn't defined by recognition. It's rooted deep within, solid, unshakable. That's why they don't panic in chaos or shout over others in conflict. They remain composed, because they know who they are. Stillness is often mistaken for passivity, but it's actually the foundation of strength. Just like the ocean, calm on the surface doesn't mean empty beneath, it means depth. The silent ones have layers most people never reach. They've cultivated patience, resilience, and insight through experience. They've weathered storms in silence, healed wounds alone, and learned not to let the world shake their center. That kind of depth can't be taught. It's earned. And because of that depth, their movements are intentional. They don't waste words. They don't rush decisions. They don't chase attention. Every action they take is deliberate. Every silence meaningful. When they do speak, people listen. Not because they talk often, but because when they do, it's real. It's rooted in something deeper than ego. And that's why their voice carries more weight than those who are constantly trying to be heard. They don't compete. They don't compare. They walk their own path, quietly building, quietly becoming. And while others are busy making noise, they are becoming undeniable. Their power isn't just seen, it's felt. It lingers in the air after they leave, not because they demanded attention, but because they commanded respect. Still waters run deep. The silent ones may not shout, their concealed power. Their powers drop. Their presence. Their calm hides storms. Their calm hides storms. Their quiet hides fire. In a world that praises noise and rewards constant exposure, the silent ones stand apart, not because they can't speak, but because they choose their silence with purpose. They move in stillness, yet command presence. They observe rather than react. They conserve energy, sharpen their minds, and let their actions speak louder than any words ever could. While others rush to be seen, they become impossible to ignore. Their silence is not emptiness, it is depth. It is not weakness, it is control. It is not fear, it is power. True power doesn't need a spotlight, it shines from within. It watches, waits, learns, and when the time is right, it strikes with undeniable force and clarity. So if you ever wonder where real strength lies, it's not in the loudest voice in the room. It's in the steady presence of the one who doesn't need to prove a thing. Because silence, when mastered, becomes the loudest roar, and those who wield it hold the most power,